And more importantly, I'm excited everybody's here, right? Because we've talked about DevCon for a while, and I know it took a little bit of a rest, but it is so nice to be back in this great town with all familiar faces, but also many new faces too that we're seeing for the first time. So let me jump right in. We've got a lot of content and sessions today, and I think we're going to get right into it. Let's see if this works. First, I want to thank all of the sponsors, because without the sponsors, it's not possible. So, yes, give yourself a round of applause, please. Please. And this is just proof that, we've gone down this platform strategy, and it takes partners at all levels to be able to help build out this platform. So we thank everybody on that. So I want to give a 30-minute directional roadmap presentation of where, from an Alfresco standpoint, we are going. I'm going to be joined in another 30 minutes to go a level deeper. We know specifically for this crowd, we like to give as much detail as we can, but that's very hard to do in 30 minutes. So what we have is, again, 2 days worth of sessions. So I thought I would tee off directionally where we're going. We can take it a level down, and then encouraging you to go to some of these key sessions. To get started, while this is usually the legal slide, what is most important is we're sharing information with you early, and we're sharing a lot of information. And that's really the spirit of the relationship and the spirit of kind of the partnership that we have with the community. Some of it may change, but it's more important for us to give you information. So this is really the importance and spirit of that. So for the people that I haven't met, I'm Thomas DeMeo. I'm the VP of Product Management at Alfresco. I'm actually coming up on my 4th year, so I feel like we've been doing this for a while now, and a lot of us have been talking. And a lot of my job is spent, probably half my job is spent talking to companies and talking to C-level CIOs and people that run IT groups, people that do architecture at a lot of big organizations around the world. And I wanted to share what they're telling me with all of you, because this really sets the context of what the day is all about. What they see is, and it's no secret that the first pillar here around consolidation, that's a big thing. That's happening in the market. The competitors consolidating, not necessarily investing much in the future, which a lot of our customers start to call us. And I would say that market consolidation has probably been a very large driver of the business uptake that we've seen in the last 12 to 18 months. It's no longer good to just sit still. You must move forward because of that's happening. So that's kind of point number one. Point number two is what I call building differentiation. And I want you to think about this for a second. This is people wanting to build an experience and wanting to control really their own destiny with their platform. And I have some examples coming up of why this is so important. But what they've done is to say, if they looked at old legacy, there's no innovation. If they look at some of the SaaS providers, it doesn't give them the freedom that they need to really innovate and build differentiation. If everybody is using the same limited platform, it's a lowest common denominator experience. They want to do more. So that's a really important point around building differentiation that I hear a lot. The third is around this open source, but also this platform infrastructure as a service innovation. We know that open source, we are all able to and freely able to innovate, and that's why we love it. But also, some of the platforms, specifically like our partner Amazon, is also innovating very, very rapidly. And when you put this open source plus platform innovation on top of each other, that's a main driver that they want to take advantage of as well, too. That's a fundamentally different thing than just a few years back. And the last is really that platform agility and all the work that we're doing, and Brian's going to talk about more around how we're looking at the platform, pulling things together, looking at microservices, and really delivering that in a containerized environment. That's also big innovation. So when I put all these 4 points together, that is this element of what we talk about as the perfect storm. It's all these things converging to say the market is different, and really it's time to become faster. So I share these two slides here really just to give you that level of visibility. This is what we talk about at the executive staff. From a company vision standpoint, we want to enable businesses to flow faster, more seamlessly, and more intelligently. And what do we mean about flowing faster? It's onboarding businesses. It's doing claims processing. It's doing this case management. It's everything that people use us for. Seamlessly means it's all these integration points. And intelligently is really the direction of the product roadmap around insight, analytics, intelligence, giving all this information that we have around process, content, and governance to our customers and really to the platform. And from a product goals, you'll see this throughout the day, is we use this term digital transformation, and that's not an Alfresco term, that's an industry term to say, how can I build a better customer experience with my clients, with my constituents, with my employees, and doing that using modern technology? That is what digital transformation needs, in delivering and eliminating the friction or the sticking points. And that's sticking points from trial experience to developer experience to deployment experience. All of those sticking points we want to eliminate and make that easier and more seamless to go. All right, so this is an easy presentation because I only have 2 points. It's the power of the platform and it's the value of the cloud. And these are examples not from me, but from customers that I want to be able to share. Because really, again, we're this platform that these experiences are built upon. So the first I'll talk about is the power of the platform. And this is a screenshot, and you can go to this address right now if you wanted to, developer Capital One. So this is Capital One, which is a large financial services company, a large bank in the United States. And they're really redefining what they're doing, not as a traditional bank or financial services company, but a technology company that happens to do banking that they are attracting a developer environment around because they want to enable that next generation of experiences. So again, you wouldn't think about that initially from a bank, but that's really their story. The second example is Pitney Bowes. And by show of hands, how many people have heard this name? This was a company that did, mailroom and mailing equipment over 100 years ago, right? And they were the back office. Their platform was, frankly, this thing on the left. It was a scale. But what they've really done is redefine what their platform is to be a set of APIs, cloud-enabled services, using things like design thinking, using data and analytics. That's the platform for the next 100 years that this company wants to do. So again, we wouldn't traditionally think about that as being so tech-centric, but that's what they're doing. And here's a key point. They're doing it with Alfresco. So this was a slide, and I didn't modify the slide, that's why it looks different than the others, that one of their colleagues presented at a New York Alfresco event earlier, I guess last year. And Alfresco is that platform that is prominently focused and featured down below. And what that means is when they want to build differentiation, which was this point I had on the previous slide, they want to have that level of control. And that's where, again, the power of open source and specifically using this on AWS is really what they want to be able to do because that gives them the differentiation, the sustainable differentiation that they're looking for. So again, don't take it from me. Here's an example of what the Cap One and Pitney Bowes are doing. The second example I want to talk about is really this digital transformation and really what the cloud is doing in that role. So this is a direct quote from a VP level person in a publishing company. And the main point here is you just can't take an application that was built 10 years ago and throw it in the cloud. You gotta really kind of think about it and build it right from the start. And it's that type of philosophy that we're looking at to say, when we do things like building out the application development framework and giving a modern set of tools and all of the scaffolding behind the scenes, and providing you containers and ways that you can deploy microservices, that's what we're thinking about so that we can deliver on really what this VP level person is thinking about. I want to share another slide. Once again, from Capital One, you can see in the left-hand side. And this is a good example. It's a high-level architecture, and it's evolved since they first presented it. But the main point here is, in the upper left, you can see an element of process. In the middle, you can see an element of content. And they really want to innovate at the speed of infrastructure, and they're also using Amazon. where it's really these forces coming together to drive a business, that they want to build sustainable differentiation. And once again, Alfresco is the platform for that. So we're in financial services, which is highly regulated, highly secure. So this is an important point. Another example, and this is my last one, is this is from FINRA, which is the Financial Industry Regulatory Association. So FINRA is the organization that if you're a bank, you have to submit your records, and they will look for suspicious activity. So if something is going wrong, they want to be able to notify it. And once again, this was presented by a FINRA person recently, where they're really making the point to say they are taking a modern approach to taking this vast amounts of data from all these financial institutions to be able to process it using Alfresco at the heart, and also some native Amazon technology, a lot of native Amazon technology, to really build that platform of the future. So the main point here is, these are the points coming together. This is how it all happens. And I want to point you to this top little URL here, alfresco.com/TEI, and make a note of that or take a snapshot. But I want to give you the tools to say, again, don't just take my word for it. We did a research report with Forrester. Forrester did a number of VP and director level interviews that really dug into this topic. I want you, go to this URL, download it, share it internally inside your company, share it with your customers, share it with prospects, share it with however many people you want. But this is really a good deep dive or more information in how this is all coming together. And it really exposes a few key challenges in the report. As we all know, we've been doing this for a while, people don't have one system inside of their environment. They typically have multiple, right? And we all get asked to pull this together. They have capacity planning problems. They think about migration. They think about access control when it comes to security and rights and authentication. And also audit and compliance, because we typically get used in highly regulated, complex environments where their information is critical, and audit and compliance becomes key. So the people talk about use cases that we all understand. It also talks about how the benefits of Alfresco, and in this particular case, Alfresco on Amazon, really make that happen. It's, again, that open source development community. It's people like everybody in this room, and the extensions that are being developed. It's migrations, tools, and services. And you'll see in some of the deep dive roadmaps coming up, us aligning to some of the migration services that, for example, Amazon is using around things like Snowball to make it easier to migrate content. Security, specifically using Identity Manager and Key Management as ways to make content more safe and encrypted, and not trying for us to reinvent the wheel, but to embrace, and extend some of these core technologies. Looking at the QA and DevOps workflow to make sure that again, removing friction, it's easier to build, test, deploy, maintain, update, monitor, looking at the whole life cycle of content. And then lastly, dynamic scalability. That FINRA example, and a lot of the banking examples I gave earlier, if you look at the way that their calendar works, at the end of the quarter, they get a rush of information. And that rush of information, it spikes. Using infrastructure like this makes that dealing with the spikes a heck of a lot easier. So that's part of the benefits that we see a lot. So again, a lot of information is in the report. I'm not going to recycle it here. The main takeaway, though, the punchline, if you will, is that moving to this type of model has a payback in less than 6 months at a pretty impressive return on investment. So really what we're seeing in this market, when I talked about the perfect storm, is people needing to move. Not only is the technology there, but the business model is there as well, and that's where I think people's comfort are getting to the point where they want to move on, and that's the main takeaway. So what are we doing about it? What we're doing is enabling this platform to make all these use cases being able to support and you to build on top of. So again, it's that one platform for digital transformation, specifically around process, content, and governance. And you'll see a lot of the architecture work that Brian will be showing later pulls all this together. It's a modern architecture. It's having something cloud ready. So using some of the cloud native technologies that are available in the market around Kubernetes and Docker. It's making it developer friendly so that you can look at the APIs and you can get the level of knowledge and intimacy about testing what those APIs do, and of course keeping that open, which is core to our values. And lastly, it's that I've used this metaphor before, is that time to value. From the time someone has a use case identified until the time that they have something into production, we want to look across that and then try to compact that as much as we can. Because that's really how much time people are using on top of us around the whole life cycle of build, deploy, and use. So this is a diagram that we've been sharing for about a year now, and this is really what that digital business platform is all about. At the core, you can see it's process, content, and governance as really the core engines of the cycle. But then, on top of that, it's those open APIs and open standards. Why? Because we want to have this be an environment in which you can build those differentiating experiences, just like Cap One, just like Pitney Bowes, just like Finner is trying to do. It's this API-first mentality. And for the people in the room that have been following, over the last several years, that API footprint has increased greatly, and that's been, again, a big focus of the team building forward. It's integrations and extensions. Because we're never that only environment or the only interface that people use. People use different clients. People use other systems. They all need to work together because, again, it's about being seamless. The application development framework, there's some great sessions coming up later on today. You maybe saw some in the hackathon yesterday. You've seen some sample applications that we've been publishing. But this is the environment in which it makes it easier to use those APIs and build those modern experiences that look great on web, look great on mobile. You can use those components in different environments. Intelligence and analytics. This gets back to the smart part I talked about of the company goals earlier. And the reason why that's important is because when we talk to those large organizations, it's not so much that they have the content and process and governance, it's what are people doing with that? Where are processes getting stuck? Where can things be more efficient? Where can I optimize the business? That's where all analytics and intelligence comes from. That's really the value of having these things come together. And it's also a differentiator when we think about why would someone want to choose Alfresco over another. It's because these are kind of homegrown, organic, integrated, right well from the get-go. And that's really important to us. And lastly, a choice of deployment. If you want to deploy on-prem, and we still have large customers that do this for a number of reasons, great. We're going to be able to support that, and we're choosing technology that allows you to do that. We also see people move to the cloud, and we have some new functionality that makes a hybrid journey a lot easier too. Specifically, we just released a new S3 connector that supports infrequent access and also AWS infrequent access, and also allows you to still have your data center on-prem, but use storage in S3 in the cloud. So different definitions of what we're using for hybrid. So there's a lot of roadmap information that I never get enough information. I never go deep enough in a keynote like this that I wanted to point out to. But I do want to point you to the right direction because there's a lot people that can go a lot deeper. So Sergio in the front row, he's going to be talking about the future deployment. Ray is going to be talking about extensions to this DDP, which is the digital business platform. Please, you can see the sessions in the rooms on that. Make a note of that. Honestly, I'll get out of the way. Please take a photo of this because this is really what you want to take a photo of. Moving to the cloud. There's been a lot of investments in moving to the cloud and making that journey easier. Gavin's has done a number of different blog posts about using some of this native technology. This has been super, super valuable. Please check out, I think that's right after this, coming up. Mario's going to be talking about ADF. Mauricio's going to be talking about the future of activity. Eugenio's going to be talking about ADF 2.0, sample applications, the component library. Ola's been posting a lot about what the roadmap of the component library is and a number of different blog posts. Please check that out. Harry's going to be talking about search and analytics with Michael. Please be able to check these out as well because, again, that's one of the main investments of this calendar year is not only pulling this together from a DDP standpoint, making it easy to deploy in the cloud, and then getting the insights of that. So these are key sessions I want everybody to be able to participate. I'll be in there as well, so we'll trade notes. So key sessions for a deeper roadmap. So the good news is we're back. DevCon is back. One of the things I wanted to address is where are we all going to be spending our time in the next couple of days here at DevCon? And I wanted to share this slide in particular because part of the concerns I heard was, now that Alfresco is getting involved in this, is this something that we're going to take over and is this something we're going to direct the content? What I wanted to say was, it's a pretty broad mix of content we're presenting here. Specifically, if you look at content services, digital business platform, and process, that's about 2/3. That's a lot of the meat of the content. And there's some other sessions in there related to governance and search and APIs and analytics. But also, the 2 pie charts at the bottom are important, right? This is a collaborative event we have with the community, our partners, our system integrators, really everybody. So if you look at the amount of content that you're going to see over the next 2 days, it's really a mix. It's about 50-50, not only in amount of minutes spent, but also the number of sessions spent. So again, this is a very much collaborative, we're all in it together type of event that's very, very important to us. On the right-hand side, I wanted to share really a direction of what are the topics that we're going to see. And these are tags associated with the session. So there's multiple tags to one session, but it's about use cases. People want to talk about not just the technology, but what are we trying to do with it? So a lot of the sessions that you're going to hear about are really driven on a specific use case, whether it be governance or building applications or deploying. So it's really tied to problems, which is great. Microservices, AWS, Java, Solar, open source APIs, that kind of rounds out the first third of that. Analytics, backup, things like that. So again, important for us is to work collaboratively with our partners, with the open source community, with really all the different session providers to give you a rich couple days. I do want to talk about release cadence because we have 2 major events each year. And these are what we call marketing events, where we go out to our customers and our partners and our ecosystems. And this is still true. And these major events are in the spring and autumn timeframe, where you're gonna hear more noise from Alfresco in the market. We're gonna talk to the analyst community. We're gonna maybe go on road shows, have big kind of events like this in the spring and in the autumn or fall timeframe. That doesn't mean we're only ever gonna develop at that timeframe. We're always developing, we're always releasing, but the main point here is, again, spring and autumn. So in the soon category, some of these things are actually already developed. Again, we updated another AWS integration, our S3 connector 2.1. That's now GA'd. Integrations is things like Outlook connector. That's also been GA'd and out the door. And we're going to keep our mobile clients current. And I could have put mobile here on every column, but I didn't. But it's another one of those. OS gets updated. We update mobile clients as well. In the spring, you will see kind of major releases, before the dot, of Alfresco content services, process services, and governance services. A lot of the details of what's in those will be in the sessions today, and we'll be going at a much more intimate level than what I can do in a 30-minute kickoff keynote. But you'll see the major features in that. Also, insights and analytics becomes kind of a native part of this digital business platform that we're delivering, that we've, again, built on Solar, homegrown, integrated across the platform. In the summertime frame, we're going to keep that cadence of AWS innovation because a lot of our customers are asking for it and a lot of it's being adopted. And also looking at ways we touch other services. Specifically, we've announced what's called an integration framework, which makes it easy to tie into Box or SAP or Workday or whatever it may be environment you want to get into. But we have a much more modern approach to be able to tie into that. And then in the fall time frame, in the autumn time frame, think about the evolution of content services, process services, and also ways that we're going to keep this digital business platform coming together. This digital business platform, that slide I showed earlier, this is not a once and we're done experience. This is something that Brian will show is an evolution. It's something we'll continue to build out. It's just part of, as we all know, the way software works is you're always iterating and building on that. And then we'll keep the cycle going around AWS innovation. What you see here at the bottom is ongoing releases for ADF. The App Dev Framework is on a monthly cadence right now, and you'll hear more about that from Eugenio and Mario later on today. And we want to keep that cadence up. Same thing for Mauricio and what the activity team is doing. They're moving to another major release, Activity 7. Expect that to keep evolving throughout this calendar year. And of course, Alfresco Community Edition releases. Richard keeps as much information as we can public about the cadence and delivery schedule of things like that. So 2018, I'm glad we're starting this in January. It's going to be a busy year, I think, for many of us. But also, this is where we start to see the realization and evolution of all these things coming together. So we're pretty excited about that. One of the key things that I'm going to ask, and please take a picture of this slide as well. One of the key things I'm going to ask for is we want your input. We want your help to define some of these items. So for example, we have early access and research programs for many of these new initiatives. We want your input in these sessions with the product managers to get involved because we want to hear about your use case. We want to know what you're migrating from. We want to know what type of customization that you want to be able to do, what your environment looks like. And all the product managers on my team, we all track this stuff and we want to get your input. So please, if you have anything related to insights or ADF or connectors or integration frameworks, please take a picture of this. You can copy me on it. All of our emails are firstname.lastname@Alfresco. And we'd like to keep that dialogue open. So this is where, again, in the spirit of openness and working with our overall developer environment, this is really important to us. So that's about all I have. Brian's going to talk about digital business platform, but I think the great thing about DevCon is, we're all here. We get to spend time in the same room together. We all get a chance to learn. I know in a couple days, I'm going to know a lot more by just talking to all of you, which is, I find, most valuable. Don't be shy. Let's ask questions. I'm going to ask a lot. Introduce yourself. Please, if you see me in the hallway, come up and introduce yourself. I'd love to meet you as well. Let's have fun, and welcome to DevCon. That's it. So Brian's going to come up and talk about the evolution of the digital business platform. So I'm looking forward to this. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it too. It's fantastic to be here at DevCon. It's great that DevCon is back. Standing where I am right now, mainly because of the projector, you are a dazzling crowd. I'm going to talk to you about how the digital business platform is going to be evolving over the next year or two. I mean, this is a journey that we're on. It's going to take us a little while. I need to show you the same slide that Thomas showed you because I'm talking about futures and where we're going and the direction that we're taking. There are going to be slides here that we may deliver this year, we may deliver next year. That isn't yet decided, so we're planning at the moment. So some things I'm going to be talking about, you should see coming in the releases that Thomas mentioned earlier on. The Alfresco Digital Business Platform, we've got it. It is there. You can buy it today. And Thomas mentioned the goal that we have, the goal to power digital transformation by delivering a frictionless digital business platform. Now, I'm going to focus quite a lot on the word frictionless out of that statement. But what have we got today? So we already have content, process, and governance. We are the only company that has all of those three pillars of our platform that we have built ourselves. These are homegrown capabilities of our platform. Thomas mentioned a few customers that are using, there are many customers that are using our platform. Thomas mentioned a few of them. The platform that we have today is secure, it is scalable, and it's reliable, and it's demonstrably so. So the Financial Regulatory Authority in the US, they are using our platform for very mission-critical stuff. I mean, these are all the transactions, all the financial transactions that happen in the US go through the Alfresco platform. Companies like Cisco, GE, Liberty Mutual, these are all very large organizations that are using Alfresco platform for very significant use cases. We're also the only company that does all this in the open. So we have those three pillars, and we are open source. And many of you are here because we're open source. It's an incredibly powerful thing, and it's incredibly important to us. And we'll be continuing to be open into the future. This is a really important thing to the success of Alfresco. We're also cloud ready. And in fact, a number of those customers I just mentioned, and all of the customers I think that Thomas mentioned, they are all using our platform in AWS. This is, again, when we look at our competitive landscape, using Alfresco platform in AWS or in other cloud infrastructures, it's much easier than it would be if you choose other systems. So this is what we've got today, and that's a very deliberate evolution that we've made. So from 2005, when we set out and built the content services, 2009, when we added in the governance services, 2012, when we started building our own process engine, and then 2015, when we took that process engine and made it a separately available product. So if you were to look at the platform, my architectural diagrams are quite noddy. I've been thinking about how is this going to look if you're in the back row of the auditorium. So I've made it quite simple. Forgive me for that. I do have more complex diagrams as well. But if you looked at the platform 2016, you would have seen this. Content services with governance and transformations and process, and then process services with all the capabilities that you need for process as well. And with that platform, and with those components, we have got this digital business platform. So we're done. We're finished. We can stop. Thomas, we can stop. No. So we can't stop. We're not happy. We're never happy. We're never satisfied. And what we want to do now is focus in particular on accelerating your time to value. So you will have heard this phrase over and over from Alfresco for a year or more. How are we going to do that? We want to look at our platform as it currently exists and work out where the friction is when you are building your solution on the platform, testing that solution, deploying that solution, and running that solution. So all the way through. So when I use the word DevOps here, I'm using it in the proper sense of the word. I know it's a word that gets misinterpreted sometimes, but I mean it in the sense of all the way through from all the development cycle, all the operations, the upgrades, the updates, everything to do with building and running your solution on the platform. Where there is friction in that process, we want to remove that friction. And by doing so, mean that you can build a solution that you want far more quickly than you can today, and moving from maybe a few months or several weeks for build time down to several weeks or a few weeks or few days maybe, or even hours for the simple cases. Drive down that time that it's going to take you to build your solutions. It's a journey. It's going to take us a little while to do it. 2017 was a year where we started that journey. We started the journey by focusing on the front end. So where are you actually building the solution that your end users will see? And so we introduced the application development framework. And we started enabling you to build process plus content applications using familiar technologies. So one of the key things about removing friction is to try and align where we can with technologies and techniques that you are familiar with, that you don't have to learn in a proprietary Alfresco way. Take the technologies that already exist, take technologies that you are already using for other types of solutions, and make use of them in our platform. You'll see that happening quite a few times, actually, on the slides that I'm going to be showing you. So where there is familiarity, where we can align with familiar things, we will do so. Where we see duplications in the platform, we'll remove those duplications and refactor those out into consolidated services. And where there are gaps in the platform, we'll fill those gaps in to make it more seamless. Where there's inconsistencies, we'll remove those inconsistencies and smooth them out to make it all consistent for you. So that's the first step that we've taken, build the ADF, and that's a journey as well. So that's going to keep on growing, and we're going to keep on adding capabilities that makes it really easy for you to build web solutions, and also in the future mobile solutions using ADF. There are a few talks that I've referenced here. There are actually more than this, but Eugenio is going to be talking about ADF2. Thomas referred to this talk as well. In fact, when I was putting this slide together, I was, Mario, you can't see you. That's Mario. So Mano from Ixus is going to be talking to you about real-world experience of using the ADF. So he's talking tomorrow in this room, so room 1, this room. And something else that's part of the ADF is the JavaScript API, the unified JavaScript API. We use it in the ADF, but you can also use it if you want to use other technology. So if you don't like Angular, if you'd rather use React, then we have the unified JavaScript API. And Mario's going to be talking about that. That's tomorrow in this room. So we're continuing the journey. I've been suitably vague about the timeline that we're on here. It's this year or beyond. I'm hopeful, but there is no commitment on the timeline here. As we go through, all of these will be 2018 and beyond. We are working on this now. We are planning this now, and we will be delivering as soon as we can along this path. The first thing we're going to introduce is an API gateway. There are a few different reasons for wanting to do this. So first of all, when you are developing your solutions, we don't want you to have to worry about whether you need to point to a URI that is pointing to process services or one that's pointed to content services. We want to give you a single entry point into the platform. So one consistent entry point into the system. The other thing that you'll notice as we do this is we are starting to align all of our REST APIs so that they are consistent. At the moment, if you look at the REST APIs that we have on the content services, they look different, they feel different to the REST APIs that we have over on the process services. We will smooth that out and make them consistent across both parts. The other thing that the API gateway is going to do is shield you from the mess that we're making underneath, refinement that we're making. We're not making mess. It's going to be a beautiful mess. But we may break some eggs while we're doing it. Then to make an omelette, you have to break eggs. And part of the purpose of putting this REST API gateway is to protect you from what we're changing under the covers. So you can be assured that that REST API, the APIs that are exposed through that gateway, that is our contract to you. We will ensure that that stays stable no matter what we do underneath the covers there. The other thing that we want to focus on very early on is single sign-on. If you're using Kerberos today, then single sign-on works pretty well with the ADF and process and content. However, if you're using SAML or OAuth or other single sign-on technologies, that isn't as smooth across both, and we want to make sure that it is. So we're going to concentrate on getting single sign-on sorted out early on in this journey that we're on. We also want to make sure that there's a single source of identity in the platform. That may take us a little bit longer to sort out. Identity is quite firmly built into the repository. But from a directional point of view, we want to do that, and we want to make sure there's a single source of identity across the entire platform. At the moment, if you're administering the platform, there are different places that you need to go to administer the platform, and we want to make sure that there is one unified experience. So we don't want you to have to go over here for that and over there for the other. One place where you can administer the platform using technologies and tools that you're familiar with again, trying to make that as smooth as we possibly can. And again, that will take us time to get to a completion of that, but we're going to be starting that work pretty early on. The other slightly more subtle change on this slide that you may not have noticed, some of you may have noticed, as well as the API gateway, this is now an API and event gateway. So not only can you make requests into the platform and get responses back, but you can also hook into events that are occurring in the platform and listen to those events in order to react to them. And we'll be setting up a topology of events that we enable you to hook into. So basically, with this, you have the tools not only to sort of make requests into the platform, but you can build your solutions to react to the platform. And that's something that if you're working on the content services side, you already do with behaviors and so on, that you sort of embed into the repository. We want to make it possible for you to build your solutions outside of the platform, partly so you can separate your development lifecycle and the deployment of your solution from the deployment of the platform itself. So you can iterate and develop your solution independently of us. Thomas mentioned this, and this is a really critical part of the platform, insight. So search, the ability to discover, do analytics on the content and processes that are in your organizations, and that when you're building your solutions, to be able to use that information in your solutions. The insight engine will pull together search and discovery across content, process, and governance. So at the moment, the search on process and the search on content are separated. We're going to be bringing them together using Solr as the underlying technology to make sure that you've got a search experience which covers both, and an administration experience that means that you scale one search index. Modeling. So at the moment, modeling content models and modeling process definitions and form definitions, they are distinct from one another. We want to make sure that, again, as you build out your solutions, as you think about what your solutions need to be, we want to make sure you've got the right tools to model the entire domain that your solution deals with in an intuitive way, something where you don't have to do things in different ways for different parts of your solution. You can go and model it all. So how do your processes relate to your content models? How do forms relate to both content models and process definitions? Bring that all together. We're currently doing user research on what would that look like? What is the modeling experience that you would expect as a solution builder? Expect that to be coming along. Again, that's something critical from a point of view of removing friction, making sure that the experience across the platform is consistent. That's a critical area for us. I mentioned that, in fact, I think on a previous slide, there was, on process and content, we have transformations. So relatively simple transformations on the process side that generate thumbnails and the like. And on the content services side, we have quite rich transformations. But even on the content side, unless you buy the transformation engine, the content transformations are sort of built into the repository. Very flexible, very, very extensible. You can take them and add in your own content transformations, but relatively difficult to scale independently of the repository. And we want to fix that. We want to make sure that there are more points where you can scale the platform and more options you've got when doing so. We also want to make sure that when you're scaling the content transformations for the content services, those are the same services that are used by the process service engine to actually do its transformations for BPM use cases. So we'll be pulling that out and having a separate transformation service. Also at the moment, forms on content and process are different. If you're using Share in particular, the forms there are different to the ADF. We'll be focusing on the ADF for rendering forms, and we'll have a form service that will do both the registration of forms and the storage of forms and the validation of forms, and also the runtime checking of those forms and the dispatching of the forms as well. So that would be the common form service. There are a number of places in the platform. So if you're using content services, you probably, almost certainly, have written some custom actions in your time. And maybe you've glued those together to form folder rules. That's most of you will have done that on the content side. If you're using process services, then there's a very good chance that you'll have written some system tasks and put them in place, so either in Java or JavaScript. Again, those are embedded into the repository and embedded into the process engine, and we want to enable you to extend the platform capabilities without having to deploy your custom code into the repository and into the process engine. And in order to enable that, we'll be putting in place a function service, a function as a service, basically, something not dissimilar to Lambdas, for example, that will enable you to register functions and then refer to those functions from your process definitions and from your content repository to make sure that those are separated out, can be run securely, but also in a resilient way. So again, enabling you to scale that independently of the repository and the process engine, enabling you to administer that separately, and making sure that if there is a failure for any reason in the custom code, then it doesn't affect the platform itself. It's isolated. We've got a clear separation of the concerns between what the platform is doing and what your custom code might be doing. You also notice on this slide that not only do we have governance on the content services side, we've also introduced some governance on process as well. And this is important. So when we started doing governance records management in 2009, at that time we were focused on content. And that's been very successful for us. But now we want to make sure that we are enabling the governance that you need both on the content and the process, and making that platform even more seamless than it is. So that, what I've just showed you is one view, just blocks of color. This is a different way of looking at those blocks of color. What you see here is an illustration of what this might look like, a little bit more architectural detail here. Admittedly, not a lot more. There's a limit to what I can talk about in just a few minutes. So here you see the main pillars. So you've got the repository, process engine, insight engine, governance sort of stripes across them. A message broker that enables asynchronous communication between those components, so inside the platform itself, and also going to the other components of transform service, form service, heartbeat service, and function service. And then there are systems sitting outside of the platform, and the ability for you to hook in and listen to outside the shell, if you like. So you can build your solution and listen to the events that are coming out of the platform, push requests into the platform, and be protected from what's going on, not needing to know what's going on inside the platform for you to build your solution, and you know that the contract that we have with you is defined by that outer shell. Extension points, so the ability to push in functions, transformations, the event log, so the ability to actually have a persistent log of all the events that have occurred in the system, the ability to hook into that, and if your system goes down for whatever reason, then the ability to come back in and say, the last event I received was this timestamp, can you give me everything that's happened since then, please? Now, there are a number of talks happening over the next couple of days that all relate to this. There are 3 that I've pulled out here. So the first one, Ray Gauss is talking tomorrow and has put together a prototype of what that event-type mechanism might look like, how you might extend the platform in the future using the mechanisms that I've talked about here. So the prototype is using Kafka to give an event stream. Recommend that you go and listen to that talk and ask questions of Ray, ask questions of me as well. Mauricio is talking, I think, after this session in room 4 about Activity Cloud. So Activity Cloud is the first real-world example of how we are using the sort of cloud-native 12-factor apps principles to build out the digital business platform architecture going forward. So Activity 7 and what's happening with Activity Cloud is a good indicator of where we're going. So again, if anything I've said of interest, and I hope it has been, or at least some of it, then please do go and talk to Mauricio, listen to that talk, and then immediately after Mauricio's talk, Ryan Dawson is going to be doing a deeper dive into Activity 7 and Activity Cloud. So again, good talks if you want to get more of an insight into what I've been describing. So you might have looked at that picture and said, well, that looks a whole lot more complicated than the first picture I showed you, where there was just content services and process services, and that seemed really easy. So have we actually made it simpler? Well, the deployment of such a system means that we're no longer talking about an installer. An installer doesn't really cut it when you're starting to break down your architecture into smaller services. And I tend to avoid the use of microservice. We're not really aiming at microservice. We're aiming at right-sized services where that is certainly finer grain in the places where I've talked about, but there's no massive push for us to sort of discard all parts of our current architecture and rebuild it in a microservice architecture. We want to go more towards that direction, but in a pragmatic kind of way. I'm a pragmatic kind of guy. So deployment, how are we going to make it easy for you to deploy? A few months ago, probably 6 months ago now, we made the decision to align with Docker and Kubernetes. It turned out actually that the rest of the industry decided to align on Docker and Kubernetes as well, at roughly the same time. And so this is, again, another example where we're trying to align with familiar stuff, popular stuff, things that people use, things actually that if you want to hire people to build your Alfresco-based solutions, it's easy for you to find those people. These are skills that exist in the job market. So very easy for you to find the right skills to build the solution that you need if you don't already have them in-house, and you may well already have them in-house. I had to change the background here. This really galled me, but the blue didn't really work as a background for these particular logos. Sorry if it's dazzling you. The nice thing about aligning with Docker and Kubernetes, as I mentioned, everybody else is aligning on Docker and Kubernetes as well. So with this, so we're going to be creating reference deployments that show you how to do this with Docker and Kubernetes and using Helm. And although we're not mandating that you do use them, in fact, you can deploy our software however you wish, we're just going to be using this as a mechanism to tell you, if you do it this way, if you lay things out this way, then this is good and it can scale. If you choose to just use that as a guide and do something using Terraform or whatever you wish, then absolutely fine. But the nice thing about Kubernetes and Docker is that, especially when you're deploying to cloud, that choice of technologies is completely aligned with what all the other cloud infrastructure systems are doing. So all the platforms in the cloud, all the infrastructure there, they are all aligning on Kubernetes and Docker at the moment. Again, a couple of talks. Talks are always behind me. Sergio, again, I'm referring to Sergio. So if you want to hear more about what we're doing with Docker, Kubernetes, Helm, and Key, some people call it Quay. I call it Key because that's how it's spelled. Then go and listen to Sergio talk and grill him about it because he likes being grilled, don't you? Yes, he does. Also, Zenit. Roxana is giving a talk about what Zenit have done with production Docker stacks. So I'm interested in hearing that as well. So people are using Docker. In fact, a number of our customers are using Docker already in production today. So we're enabling them to do it more easily, and we're providing the artifacts that makes it really simple to do that. But customers have been doing it, and then it's going to be talking about how they've enabled some of their customers to use it. So we already have a digital business platform. It's already scalable and secure and reliable, and we're doing it in the open. We're going to be making it more secure, more scalable, and more reliable. We're not going to lose focus on those. As we move forward, you'll see all of these things getting even stronger. You may also see us being more open as well. We've migrated far more of our code now into Git, into GitHub, and we use GitLab internally. And that should enable us to be more open with you, to enable you to give us pull requests and for us to actually consume them far easier than we found when using Subversion. We're already cloud ready. We're going to become more cloud ready. We're going to enable more cloud capabilities. Especially if you're deploying into AWS, you can expect to see more capabilities coming along that make you allow you to take advantage of that. Now, there's a risky slide, this one, because there are a lot of Alfresco employees here, and they are all experts in Alfresco stuff. Talk to them all. If you see Alfresco as the company, grab them. They're here to work. Make sure they do work. This slide here, again, I'll pose in front of it if you like, but take a picture of it. These are a few people that I'm sure they want me in the picture. You want me in the picture, right? Yes. Oh, thank you. So there are a number of people here. I've pulled out just a subset, and if you're in the room, you're from Alfresco, and you're not on this slide, I apologize. I've pulled out just enough that, again, could be visible from the back. That one there is Mario. Looks very similar to Eugenio, if you want to know what he looks like. Also, on process services, worth pointing out, I didn't have a picture of him, but we have a new architect for process services called Marcello Teodori. There he is with his hand up, look. So you'll recognize his hand at least. If you see that hand going around, then grab him. So here are some people. These are the areas that they specialize in. Talk to them about anything, honestly. They love to talk. That's why they're here. That's all I had. Welcome again to DevCon. I hope you have a fantastic conference. It's really exciting to be here. Thank you very much.